Here at JW Pepper, we've been helping musicians be their best for close to 150 years, and that goes beyond selling sheet music and accessories. We're promoting both mental and physical wellness for instrumentalists and vocalists with a new landing page, jwpepper.com/wellness. Over the next several weeks, we'll be updating it with new products, resources, and interviews with experts. Check out the page so you don't miss any of our new content. Today I'm speaking with Chloe Upshaw, an accomplished flutist, composer, and educator from the Pacific Northwest who specializes in modern flute techniques and electroacoustic composition. She earned her MM in music performance at the University of Tennessee and her BM in flute performance at the University of Puget Sound. With the mission of nurturing the mental health and well-being of musicians, Chloe promotes the use of sound exploration as a medium for mindful expression. Remember to subscribe to the channel to see more interviews like this one. Now, let's welcome Chloe. I heard about you because I saw that you did your workshop at the Flute Society of Greater Philadelphia's flute fair recently. I was sorry I wasn't able to be there, but I hope to go one of these years.
Yeah, and that's actually a workshop that I've given a few times now. That was like my fourth or fifth one, and every single group that I've given it to, I always learn something new and discover something different and make a connection with someone. And so I look forward to continuing these discussions at events like that. And it's just it's very exciting to see also other flute players taking initiative and incorporating wellness into their own studios. And
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's so important just to, to have healthy musicians that can have a long and successful and happy career, that it's a lot of the time it's not wellness can fall onto the back burner, but it really is so important to make it a priority.
yes, yeah.
So in your workshop materials, I saw that you talked about there being 8 dimensions of wellness. Could you go into that and what those are?
Yes, so I am a huge fan of the 8 dimensions of wellness. And now there's a lot of different variations of this, like the 6 dimensions, the 7 dimensions, but I like the 8 dimensions. So the 8 dimensions was coined by Dr. Peggy Swarbrick, and she's the director of the Center of Alcohol and Substance Studies and a professor in psychology at Rutgers. And in no particular order, she defines the 8 dimensions as emotional, environmental, physical, intellectual, financial, occupational, spiritual, and social. And observing each of these categories in your own life can be a really insightful resource in crafting a health and wellness routine that aligns with your current needs, whether that be something with a lot of structure or just something very little. And I think it's helpful to create like graphs and charts or other little visual aids that can help you easily identify which of these dimensions might need more attention in your life right now. Like you could maybe rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. And I make my own charts every couple of months and observe the changes. And even if like the results aren't ideal or whatever, it's actually quite gratifying to like have them on paper, look at your progress. And it's normal. I've gathered that it's very normal to feel unhappy about one or multiple categories, but using this information can help you make informed decisions that will help improve your overall wellness. If you're a college student and you are an active performer and all these wonderful things are happening in your career, but you're just tired and you can't really find the energy to enjoy your accomplishments, maybe it's because there's other areas lacking in your life that need attention. So that's kind of like why I present the dimensions of wellness.
So you recommend just sort of writing them all out and doing a self-assessment of each area?
I like doing like I make a pie chart and I'll like color it in or do like a graph, like any type, like a bar graph, like something visual that's very easy to see, that's like, oh, this one's tall, this one's shorter. It's like something like that. Thinking about things more abstract and like putting it on, and or less abstract, I guess, and putting it on paper can make it easier to understand rather than
Hmm.
just kind of keeping it all in your head and your thoughts.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, whatever kind of journaling you do, it just can make such a difference to get your thoughts out on paper and have a document that
Mhm.
and you think like monthly is a good like a good.
Yeah, I usually do like at the like every 4 months or something
Mm,
like that, or whenever I feel like I wanna, or if I go to revisit one and I feel like it's different, or if I don't agree, then I'll evaluate
mhm.
again and see maybe what phase in my life am I in right now? Like, am I in work mode or, yeah.
Yeah, it's always a I mean, we all have different seasons of our lives where different things are gonna take priority, right?
Hmm.
Continuing down that, just talking about wellness and being a healthy what does a healthy musician look like to you, like, mentally and physically?
Yeah, well, I think that a healthy musician can look like and be a lot of different, or just many things.
Sure.
From an audience perspective, like objectively, I guess, like it may be someone that emanates confidence and artistry on and off the stage. And that goes for teachers as well too, because sometimes even just teaching can feel like a performance, but somebody who is, I guess, confident in who they are. And importantly, a healthy musician does not practice until the brink of injury or burnout.
Mm,
And whether they know it or not, they make their decisions based on their values and interests and the 8 dimensions of wellness, like whether or not that's like in their mind, they make decisions that are going to help them, even if it like leads to some sacrifices in different areas. So it's like you could practice like 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, but then at what cost?
right, you're probably likely to get injured and then you can't practice at all.
Exactly.
So in addition to like the physical health of maybe injury from overuse, I guess there are some mental health risk factors that come with being a musician as well. Do you find that musicians are more susceptible to anxiety or depression or other mental health challenges as opposed to the average person?
Due to the demanding nature of a career in music, even classically trained musicians do statistically face an increased risk of developing anxiety and depression compared to the general population, and compared to other like musical um, genres or routes. There are characteristics within like the academic classical music spheres that do create environments where musicians are susceptible to developing some yeah, poor health habits.
Right. So it's the demanding nature of it definitely is a factor. Are there any other like just common causes of these problems developing?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that can contribute. I think threats of competition, so kind of like insecurity, fatigue, or injury, overuse. We mentioned that.
Mhm.
Psychological trauma, like maybe you didn't have a good relationship with a teacher, or you got called out, and when it was a traumatic experience, things like that. Fear of failure, financial insecurity. And the big one is music performance anxiety. And according to a study, I did a study at the University of Tennessee where 50 students answered a questionnaire in 2021, and 72% of them expressed not feeling equipped with the necessary skills or resources to cope with the effects of music performance anxiety and mental health. So I think a large part of this issue is that there are gaps in the, I guess, standard music performance curriculum, mainly including how to prepare the mind and body for successful performances, or even practicing too. Like practicing is a huge mental thing as well.
Do you have any like practical tips for people who might be watching in terms of how to combat some of these issues like that we just touched on?
Yeah, yeah. And so things, I guess like there's things that you can do to prevent these types of experiences long term, like weeks ahead. But if you're like standing outside, like the stage is right there and you're like having a panic attack, there
Yeah.
are simple things that you can do to kind of quickly pull, like, get back in control. And so I would highly recommend active mindfulness. So this is like the one tool that like I always go back to, and this can be simply achieved by just checking in with your five senses: touch, sight, taste, smell, and hearing. And
Yes.
yeah, because these are our direct and only perception really of reality, and having more clarity of your internal and your external experience can really just um, allow you to see things that might be going unnoticed, such as you're safe and this isn't a threatening situation, and that you put in the work. So it's kind of like taking that moment to like center.
What
Yeah.
about things you mentioned things you can do like weeks ahead of time? Like what should people be doing? Like if you know you have a performance coming up and you feel like you might be nervous and freeze up in the moment, how can you prepare?
I always like to say that the absence of a plan is an invitation to stress, and that you can make decisions that will help you in the long run. So, for example, knowing your circadian rhythm or your biological clock. So, uh, knowing when your productive hours are, when you need to recharge, and what does recharging look like? Are you going to be alone or with people, inside, outside, things like that? And then, like, can you make decisions about your schedule based on what hours of the day you might be more inspired or not? And writing down your goals, like micro and macro, and then creating a timeline for them. So if you have like a performance in 2 months, start there, work backwards week by week, and decide how much you actually want to practice that week. And just like have everything structured for you so you can just follow a template. And setting positive practice intentions and layering your practice topics is something that I would recommend for easing stress leading up to, say, like a recital. So when you're preparing or learning new music, the layering technique can be used to integrate your artistry, awareness, and like technique all at the same time. So rather than focusing on one topic at a time, like I get a new piece, I'm going to learn the notes and then decide
Mhm.
where I breathe and then do this. And then lastly, I'm going to memorize. Instead, incorporate all of those things from the very beginning and be taking the artistic approach from day one. So then, like, that just kind of helps a lot with the trajectory, and I guess atmosphere of your practicing sessions, and recording progress, either audio, video, handwriting, and just really consistency is the key. So just making that commitment to invest in yourself by taking the extra steps to acknowledge what you need to do to get the most fulfillment out of your art. And yeah.
Yeah, these all sound like great strategies and it sounds like these would all be really great tips for teachers to implement as well. Like when they're
Yeah.
teaching students to like show them how to incorporate all of these strategies that you're mentioning.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. A lot of yeah, it's just simply a lot of these skills just aren't taught.
Yeah.
um, and instead of like understanding that, a lot of people will jump to the conclusion that it must be me, I'm the problem, or I'm just simply not cut out for this. When
Hmm.
in reality, performance anxiety has nothing to do with skill or ability. Like, I mean, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Adele, they
Yeah.
have anxiety. Uh, Chopin, he in his journal, in his diary, he said that he could hardly ever perform. He wasn't fit to perform because he felt like he was being choked. He was so
Hmm.
anxious, and so it has nothing to do with your skills or who you are.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very common. Like, do you know how common it is? Like, do most musicians experience some level of music performance anxiety during their career?
Yeah, and out of the wellness workshops I've been getting, just it's alarming how many people are like, it's a constant thing for me. Like, I'm never not anxious when I'm performing. And so um it deters a lot of musicians for continuing to share their music and pursue performance because of that.
Things have you seen like a real difference in have people been able to overcome their anxiety like by following these strategies in your
Yeah.
experience?
Yes, I actually did have most of the motivation for this work that I'm doing and this vision that I have for my future is inspired by the experience I had with my students in doing this type of work. One of my favorite memories was last year. One of my students was giving their junior recital, and they had been meeting with me a couple times a month, and we would do just some like short little meditation, maybe like a 5 minute just like breathing exercise. Like, we would meet as a flute trio and just do like a breathing exercise. And before his recital, on the day of, he texted me and asked if I could come and just meditate with him right before, like backstage with him right before his performance. And just like, and this is somebody who dropped out of school and then came back like later on in their life with having a lot of struggles and extraordinary experiences under their belt, and then seeing them commit and show that um, they're going to give themselves that time and space to be creative. It really meant a lot to me to see, um, to, I guess, have that moment with him, have that meditation, and then it result in a beautiful recital and a beautiful performance.
Well, that's really great to hear. It sounds like it really is effective to just take the time to be mindful and breathe and
Yeah, even
center
if it's just
yourself.
3 minutes. Yeah.
Do you find that, like, negative self-talk is a big factor too? Like, what are some negative thinking patterns that people have, and, like, what can you do to challenge those?
We can very easily begin to just ruminate on things that simply aren't true or maybe distorted. Some of the most common and unhelpful thinking thoughts, I guess, for musicians would be thinking all or nothing, like black and white, like one mistake, the whole thing was a big failure.
Mhm.
Jumping to conclusions, um, minimizing the good qualities, that's a huge one. There's so many times where I've gone to people and been like, that was so amazing. They're like, no.
I
So,
made one mistake in measure 5, so the rest of it is was
yeah, and so
terrible. Like
it's ruined. Yeah, or like people were like, "Oh, I can't. It's not a good recording. Therefore, it's not a good performance." So like
Mm.
the mental filter. So ignoring the positives in the situation. Should statements like "I should have practiced more. I should have done this." Those aren't productive. Labeling yourself like "I'm an idiot. I'm a loser." Overgeneralization, so kind of like focusing on each little defeat and being like, oh, it's like this never-ending pattern of just bad things. But almost like the list could just go on, and almost all of these can be related to performance
Mhm.
settings or situations. And I keep a list of these thoughts, and I have it posted where I practice, because when I do think something about myself that hurts my feelings, almost always it's on that list. And then I will challenge that by looking at a different list of my favorite ways to combat those. So some of my favorite ones, or the ones I have memorized, are: is this a true thought? And in what ways could this thought be biased? And how might I be exaggerating my thoughts and feelings, catastrophizing and thinking in absolute terms? So absolute terms is a big one. And then my favorite one, the one that usually works the best for me, is: what would you say to a friend who had
Mm.
this thought?
I've
Just
heard yeah, I've
yeah.
heard that before, like, would you tell a friend, like, you're an idiot? No, like, so you shouldn't speak that way to yourself either.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. And it's always like that one, or like, yeah, thinking about it as if like treating yourself like, what if this is somebody else? Then all of a sudden, like, I've seen people get emotional instantly and be like, oh, but wait, I
Yeah.
could never be so mean to somebody like that. So, yeah, so it's just being kind to yourself. It's amazing how life-changing it could be. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving from mental into physical health, you're a flutist, I am too. Do you have any advice that would be specific to flutists or to woodwind players? I guess to start, like, any exercises or uh, things that you find helpful?
Yeah, and as far as like so as far as exercising goes, things that are really great for musicians are like yoga, any type of like stretching or anything that's going to reduce tension in your body is great. Things like endurance, things like running or just walking every day is great. Take time to, or dedicate time, whether that be like 10 minutes a day, to learn a new skill.
Mm.
Or like extended, like any types of like extended techniques, or circular breathing, or beatboxing, like anything that could earn you some kind of like bragging rights, or just something that's going to add variety, and yeah, just add something new to your practicing. It can kind of add more energy. And so just, yeah, exploring singing and playing with your voice, stimulation of the vagus nerve, that helps you tap into that your parasympathetic nervous system and calm down. So there's, yeah, you could do yoga, running, walking, and then also approach your instrument, I guess, maybe warming up with like mindfulness techniques.
Tell me more about that. The mindfulness techniques warming up.
There is a way that you can hum to relax your body, and by humming, you're actually stimulating a nerve called the vagus nerve, which is the main nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest side. Which the alternative would be like the fight or flight. So like the alarm bells, the blurry vision, sweating, confusion, all the things that can make a performance go terribly. And
Mm.
so you could do, I highly recommend doing like long tones and incorporating either some singing or like humming in them, and really getting out of the music and really just playing into the space. From a mindfulness perspective, I'll like, sometimes I'll be playing like long tones or scale, but sometimes I'll just be improvising and just breathing and playing notes and filling up my sound and feeling it resonate in the room. And then I imagine my sound going beyond the walls. And then I imagine it going down into the earth, and then think about it and just feeling it expand in different ways. And it's just incredible what that type of work and approach can do to your resonance and your grounding. And if you take that energy and then immediately practice like Iber afterwards, like
Yeah.
that's going to be so much more productive, I feel, rather than 10 minutes of Tafnel Gobert and then straight to,
Mm.
so it's kind of the, you can, you're allowed That's a big thing. And just knowing that you're allowed to do things like that. And yeah, so that's kind of like there's no right or wrong way to do it. And that's why I'm such a huge like really my mission is to promote electroacoustic music and sound exploration for this very reason is just um simply just playing and exploring and approaching it from a place of calm and centeredness. Because if you can easily go to that place, maybe when you're in a performance setting, you can be able to take yourself to that same spot. The more often that you practice like a specific mindset, you're literally strengthening the neural connections to that. And the more often that you spend time in that headspace, the easier it will be to revisit it if you feel like you're opposed to just continuing a cycle of panicking every time you perform, because ultimately you're creating a coping mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's a really good way to think of it. If it's like if you practice being nervous, then like you're gonna get used to being nervous and get good at being nervous. But
Uh-huh.
you spend more time being relaxed, it's easier to get to that space. That's really a great way to think about it.
Yeah, there's this author, and if I have any book recommendation, Vanessa Cornett, I think it's The Mindful Musician. Oh, I need to make sure I get the title right. But she explains this really well. She explains it like if you're in a performance setting, there's like you're out in like a snowy blizzard and there's like two cabins, and then one of them is the option to be anxious and fight or flight, and then the other one is the rest and digest, or the calm and centered. And then the other one, to the fight or flight, the path is well traveled, like you could skip over there, like you could just go over there. But then the path to rest and digest and calmness, it's like 6 feet of snow. And so you got to work and you have to dig your way out of there. But the more often you choose to take that path, it'll become clearer. And then the other one will start to kind of pile up with snow. And then that's how you redirect your, um, yeah, your thought and your approach.
I like that. It's a good
Mhm.
metaphor.
Yeah, I like visuals.
Um, I guess thinking more about woodwinds in particular and physical things, like are there any just do's and don'ts as far as avoiding injury, carpal tunnel, like straining your wrists or your hands, anything like that, like practical tips?
My tips would be to just be very structured and organized and methodical about your practicing, and to just make sure a lot of the overuse injuries unfortunately happen by the time it's too late and by the time it's already affected you. And so being able to just craft your practicing in a way that will prevent, overplaying. And if you're I guess playing very like, I think that the stuff that tends to cause the most, I guess, in like I guess physical problems in music is technical playing, because that's where we start to kind of arch over maybe our, our
Tense up.
yeah, we tense up, we grip because we're thinking. Like the more we think about like one thing, another, a lot of things go out the window. And so the reason why the layered practicing is a great thing, or a great like approach, is because you can't play with like okay, let me think. Like say for example, if I want to play the opening line to Chantelinos, that's the piece I'm working on, the first page of that. Like if I'm just gonna go and play it and do my thing, like it might go fine. It might sound a little stressful, but if I'm doing the layering practice method where it's like I'm thinking about breathing and vibrato and movement all at the same time, tension, like those things don't work if you're playing with tension. So it's kind of like you could keep a sticky note of say like posture, breathing, and um, I guess finger proximity could be a good one. So it's like relaxed fingers, good posture, oxygen. That's all you need, I guess, to play without tension. And so just rather than focusing on the notes themselves, focus on the foundation, because the notes
They'll come.
They'll come. You'll know what to do. Like that. The pattern isn't the hard part. It's the designing this foundation, which is the the challenging part, the part that we like to skip over, overlook, and yeah, it'll catch up with us.
It's so true. I mean, you might get all the notes in, but if you're not breathing right and you're not don't have good posture, then
Mhm.
like, what did you really achieve? You know?
Mhm. I'm a huge Professor Simakopoulos at WVU. I'm studying with her, and she has changed my life by introducing nose breaths to me.
Mm.
And that just the concept of like, oh, I don't have to breathe in time, like the like that's a very actually like this sound is tense, but if I have a measure to breathe, just why not breathe normal, or why not breathe in through the nose where it's comfortable? You know, this that's kind of activating the fight or flight, like that type of like getting ready to go. But if you're just like, or you can even be fast, like, so it's just all about the way that you're thinking about it and approaching it, I think.
Yeah, so, you mentioned a lot of the time, like, you don't know you're headed for an injury or an overuse situation until it's too late. Are there any, like, telltale signs along the way that you might be going in the wrong direction? Like, is there any way to stop it in its tracks? Anything that you would tell people to look out for?
I always try to practice in a room that has a tall mirror. And always make sure that you're monitoring yourself, because you might be feeling some like sometimes like I'll feel something and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Maybe it'll go away tomorrow. Or maybe this is something I should start to be concerned about. Really like write it down, monitor it, write down the date, and then also make sure that you're incorporating technology. So like I use a tripod, or if I'll sometimes my teacher will videotape me playing something like up close, and you can look and be like, maybe my fingers are doing a weird thing, or like you can probably diagnose the issue quickly by just really monitoring yourself. And if you need to get like a thumb port, get a thumb port. If you do it, like don't be, I guess, afraid or worried about anything that you have to do to help yourself. And if that's taking time off or wearing a brace if needed, just make sure that you're learning as much as you can, and just always knowing what's going on, I would say, is the biggest thing.
It was a pleasure getting to know Chloe and learning about her work. I really enjoyed her insights when it comes to the 8 dimensions of wellness and writing down your progress towards each of them on a regular basis. As a flutist, I can appreciate Chloe's take on how rehearsing technical passages can make you tense up, and her tips for combating that tension can apply to any wind player's practice routine. Thank you, Chloe, for taking the time to speak with us. We hope that you learned something from this interview. Reach out to us in the comments with your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media. Check out jwpepper.com/wellness, since we'll continue to update the page with even more interviews and resources.